Hey, what's going on YouTube? Today we're going to be turning some black Air Force One Low into these black and purple Air Force One Low Customs. First thing we need to do with these Air Force One are take the laces out and take out the filling on the inside of the shoe and take out the shoe inserts. Next we're going to use acetone to take off the factory finish of the areas we're going to be airbrushing. You can use acetone or you can use a deglazer to strip the sealer as well. After you're done stripping the factory finish off your Air Force One, then you will need to tape off all the areas where you want to keep the factory finish of the black leather. In this case, we will be taping off the toe box, parts of the tongue, such as the label and the sides of the tongue, the Nike swoosh, the lining of the shoe, and the midsole of the sneaker too. Again, you're going to want to make sure you take your time taping the shoe off properly, because it's actually going to save you a lot of time in the end when it comes to taking the tape off. If you don't tape it up properly, you're going to have a lot of touch-up areas that you're going to need to take care of, which can be very time consuming. Once you get your Air Force One taped off properly, it's time to hit them with some adhesion promoter. Bulldog adhesion promoter is what I would recommend. It's given me great results. This stuff bonds to the shoe, then the paint bonds to the adhesion promoter. It's the same stuff they use on cars when they're painting door panels and stuff like that. After a couple of coats of the adhesion promoter, it's time to put the first coat of white on the sneaker. Your first coat, you want to spray on a light coat and let it dry for the recommended amount of time before your second coat. I would wait about 10 to 15 minutes to make sure that the first coat is dry and sets up properly. By doing this, you'll ensure that the paint has a nice bond to the shoe. Once your Air Force One are basically white, you're going to take some leather dye. In this case, I'm going to be using some purple leather dye from Angelus Direct. You want to take one of the applicators that comes with it, or you can take a paintbrush, and basically you're going to dye the whole shoe purple to make sure that underneath the coats of paint is going to match the color that we're going to be painting. You want to make sure that you let the leather dye set up for the proper amount of time. After you're done using your applicator or your paintbrush, I actually use both. I like to use the applicator to coat pretty much the entire shoe as much as possible, and then I like to come back with a paintbrush to get underneath all of the nooks and crannies of the shoe. After you dye the shoe and you let the dye set for the proper amount of time, you're going to want to put another 2 to 3 coats of adhesion promoter over the dye. Let that set, and now we're ready to start airbrushing. You can use whatever color you want, but for this video I'm going to be using opaque violet from Jacquard airbrush paints. You just pour this stuff in the airbrush gun and start spraying. For the most part, no additives needed. And again, since we just laid down a few coats of the adhesion promoter, the first coat of this opaque violet should be very, very light coat, and you want to let that set for at least 10 to 15 minutes before the second coat. That's going to make sure that we have a nice tight bond from the adhesion promoter to the paint. For this custom, I'm using a Master single piston airbrush compressor with an Iwata Neo airbrush gun. If you haven't already, like, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell notification to stay in the loop on any new videos we drop. I like to spray coats on one at a time and then let the coats just dry by themselves, but I also occasionally will use a heat gun. And when you use a heat gun, it's basically going to speed up the process of the drying time for each layer. After the 4 to 6 coats have dried, it's time to take the tape off and see what we got here. You always want to take the tape off as soon as possible so you're not leaving tape residue, especially on the outsole and the midsole of the shoe. Not always, but occasionally you're gonna have to do touch-ups from spray that got under the tape or stuff like that. I'm gonna use some Jacquard opaque black to touch up some of the lining of the Air Force One. If I'm doing touch-ups on the leather, I would use Angelus flat black to match the Nike factory black. It just matches a lot better compared to the opaque black from Jacquard. One of the final steps, we're gonna seal the sneaker custom with Liquid Cake's matte top coat. This is the closest thing you're gonna get to a factory finish for your custom. There's a few products out there, but I've pretty much used all of them. And this one, hands down, is gonna seal up your custom pretty much with the closest thing you're gonna get to a factory finish. After a couple of coats of this stuff, it's gonna make your artwork water resistant and scratch resistant. It gives you that smooth factory feel as well. Last but not least, we gotta lace these things up and get them on the feet. Also, if you're looking for a pair of Air Force One customs like these, I'll leave a link in the description. Again, if you take your time prepping and taping the shoe off, you should get good results with minor touch-ups needed at the end. As you can see, you can get close to factory with lasting results if you don't rush and you take one step at a time. These black and purple Air Force One customs came out clean. Now I'm gonna leave you with some on-foot footage. If you haven't already, like, comment, subscribe, and hit the bell notification to stay in the loop on any new videos we drop.
SneakerVinyl.com.